Dr. Ahmed YouTube channel, and today we are going to record another short video on a really very short poem that is written by Langston, the American poet, who is a celebrated American poet. He is African American, and so he's got the experiences counted on his own life as well as on the life of other African Americans with respect to the experiences which these people have been having or experiencing during their stay in that country where the other type of people are also present, and how do they live according to that. And he keeps on reminding himself and his readers also the past of these nations. I mean, how the slavery was present and how racialism grew up and how much they have been mistreated sometime. And in a way, it's a kind of recalculation or a recounting of the experiences of black people or that of African American within that country, which is called as America. And that experience he tells in such a way that ultimately it becomes the experience which is a universal experience of slavery. It's a very small poem, and the title which Langston Hughes is given to this poem is The Negro Speaks of Rivers. Now, there are two important words before we go into the poem. We should discuss these two important words. First is Negro, and then it is rivers. Negro is the term which has been mostly used by the people in order to describe the African Americans, especially those Africans which were brought as slaves into European countries as well as into USA. And there's a long history of this slavery and the way these people were put to work. And then is the river. River is a life giver. River is life because it is water. And most of the populations have been done on the banks of the river in all the world, of course, almost. And most of the civilizations are known with respect to these rivers. So rivers and the waters of these rivers do have a very great importance for us. Now we need to find out the link between the Negro and the river by reading the poem, of course. I'm going to have a reading of the poem, and later on we can talk different parts and the things associated with the poem. For example, the poet says, I have known rivers ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I have seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. And the last three lines, I have known rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the rivers. This is total poem. Let's go back and start it line by line. For example, the first part of the poem, as I have made it into parts, says, I have known rivers, ancient is the word, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. So these three lines try to talk of the ancientness of the rivers. And the poet says that he has known these rivers very well. He says that he knows these rivers even before the time human beings were born or the blood of human beings started to flow into their veins. So in a way, he wants to say that Negro and the rivers have been existing in this world for so long a time. Since the time human beings came into existence, since that time, Negro and the river both have been existing. So that is why Negro has been knowing these rivers very well. Let's see what more things he says in the second part of the poem. By the way, there are no parts. I have just divided them in order to make the people understand. He says, my soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. So the poet is trying to tell us that at that time, when human civilizations were starting, at that time, he was able to see what is happening on the edges and the banks of Euphrates. So Euphrates represents an ancient civilization of Babel and Nineveh, where the first laws of human beings were enacted. The poet says that he knows this river very well. He has bathed into this river. I mean, even at that time, he or the type of people he represents may be there, their work may be there, they might have constructed the civilization of river Euphrates. He continues by saying, I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. The second river the poet talks about is Congo. Congo is in Africa, as has been mentioned by Joseph Conrad in his novel, The Heart of Darkness. In that novel also, he talks about the river Congo, which is a very big river, source of life, source of transportation for the African people. According to him, this river is just like a snake and it coils, comes back to certain places and is a big source of inspiration. So Congo River is the representation of African civilization and reminds us of the colonization of Africa as well. So the poet says that he has established a hut on the side of this river Congo. He also talks about the river Congo and the civilization which existed alongside the river. Then he talks about the third river, this river Nile. According to him, I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. He says river Nile is famous with respect to the pyramids which are constructed on the banks of this river Nile in Egypt. According to him, he knows this river as well. He knows the civilization as well. And as a result, he wants to say that even here, some Negro type people, some people who were the slaves, some people who were the workers, they were present and they erected this type of civilization. The last river that he counts is the Mississippi in USA. And according to him, I heard the singing of Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I have seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. So according to the poet, he has witnessed the developments which took place around river Mississippi. Now this is in USA, and according to him, he reminds himself the time when Abe Lincoln traveled through this river and reached a place, and ultimately the river's water, muddy waters turned into the golden sunset. So according to him, river Mississippi is also very important, and the travel of Abe Lincoln is very important because Abraham Lincoln was the very person who put an end to the slavery. So in this way, first of all, let us see that there are 4 rivers, and all these 4 rivers are present in different continents of the world. For example, first of all, it is Euphrates, it is in Middle East, and then it is going to be river Nile, again near Middle East but in Africa. Congo is also in Africa, and ultimately it talks about the American river Mississippi. So therefore, we can see that the poet takes into consideration all those rivers which are famous with respect to the civilizations which were constructed around these rivers, or one can say on the banks of these rivers. So it was Congo, it was Euphrates, it was Nile, and ultimately it was Mississippi. So the poet says that I have been there. For example, it says, I have known rivers, ancient dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. So the first sentence is repeated here, that his soul has become dusky like these rivers. And that is repeated here. He says that these things have been happening all the way in his life, in the life of human beings, in the ancient civilizations, and even today these things are happening. By the way, if we take Negro as the representative of all the slaves which existed in this world, he in fact wants to say that all civilizations which developed in the past time, the role of the slaves have been very important there. The slaves constructed the Nile civilization, Euphrates civilization, and ultimately the end of this type of work through the slaves was happening at that time when Abraham Lincoln traveled through Mississippi. And all these times, slaves have been important because they made a big role in constructing these civilizations. So always these civilizations may be dreamt of by somebody else, but the major role in constructing these civilizations was made by the slaves or the Negroes. So the role of these Negroes is pointed out in these lines. Not only this, if we see through post-colonial context, we can say that Africans who were brought from Africa and put into different parts of the world in order to work, it was their work which constructed the biggest civilization of the colonial empire or the other places, especially that of USA. So they have got a role to play there. And that is what the poet is probably not only referring with sadness that they have always been put to trouble for these constructions, but then he is also proud of the thing that they are responsible. They have played a big role in constructing these civilizations. So these Negroes and slaves have got a big relationship with these constructions. Now, on the one hand, this is the situation. On the other hand, powerfulness and then is the slavery. Both the things go side by side in this world, has been going side by side in this world. And so one weak, one powerful, and that is why post-colonial aspect of the poem is quite visible here. And the history of the black African Americans, that is also visible here. That again makes and reminds us of the colonial systems or the empire or the way colonialism worked. And ultimately, now this is being said, told to everybody and repeated again and again. That is why post-colonialism is being practiced through this poem of Langston as well. And I would also say that the poem is very short and it carries number of symbols. The river itself is a symbol, Negro itself is a symbol, and that is why it goes to represent the power of the river, the power of life. and then the construction of civilization according to these rivers. And so Negroes, the workers, the kind of life which they provided for the civilization of human being is quite present here. The poet also constructs an image of the world where all these rivers are present and providing life as well. And he also takes us from the present to the back into history, and we go to provide ourselves with the knowledge of the history, what has been happening in the past time, what possibly is happening now. The lines do not carry any special rhyme scheme, although there are certain assonances and consonances available in whole of the poem. Some kind of repetition of the lines that is called anaphora that is also present here in these lines. The poem is so short that one cannot go in the deepest possible analysis. However, the theme of the poem is again the difference between the powerful and the powerless people. But these powerful and powerless people have been playing with each other, and the significant contribution of the powerless people have not been counted. This poem of Langston is an effort in order to recount or re-establish the efforts of these insignificant people with the efforts of the significant people as well. This history of the slave or master relationship has been quite common in the colonial discourses, and so that is why the poet is also talking in these terms. Not only this, the concept of racialism can also be brought here. Now, when an African American goes to talk about this issue, it means that he is the one who represents all those African Americans who were the slaves, who were the workers, but they have done a great job. So in a way, the poem becomes not only a type of complaint, but also a type of celebration of the work of those people who have been involved in producing this type of civilization along the side of the rivers. I hope that some of the view of the poem has been captured. Hopefully you might have understood, so do not fail to hit the subscribe button and to hit the like button. Your comments will also be welcome. Saying you goodbye here in this short video. Hopefully I shall be meeting in some other video on the similar type of poem. Thank you for watching.